Hi, it's Friday, it's 3 o'clock. Welcome to Together Unlocked, brought to you as always by Together 2012. We're a disability arts organisation based in the main London 2012 Paralympic host borough of Newham. I'm Ju Gosling, also known as Ju 90. I'm the artistic director as well as an artist in my own right. In my East London studio, as she has been since March, is our chair, the artist and documenter Julie Newman. So, we're going to come back to East London for some audio description in a minute. But first, at the other end of our long virtual wheeled sofa in the West Midlands, are Robin and Josh, who will introduce themselves properly and also give you some audio description at the same time.
So, good afternoon. It is finally Friday on this tear-filled week. Um, I am Robin Surgeonator. I am the business director at Together 2012, and when I can be, I'm an artist known as Angry Fish. Still doing it behind closed doors at the moment. Um, so today, yeah, we're up here in the West Midlands, and the weather is going from glorious sunshine to apocalyptic rain, um, like in moments. So if there's a suddenly goes dark in here and there's a loud set of sounds, that's what it is. Uh, Today I am still having silvery white grey hair, no rimmed black armed glasses, blue eyes, no earrings, uh, and do you want to know what I'm wearing for the weekend at the moment, or is that shortly?
I thought it
Well,
was.
we do need to know what you look like for the audio description. So I will just explain to any new viewers because it's Friday, we are dressed up to go out to go in. So depending on how much of that you're going to do later in our feature after 3:30, something for the weekend, give us more or less audio description now, but do tell us what you're wearing.
Okay, so sorry for any confusion there, folks. I am wearing a kind of well, it looks yeah, a khaki-ish. That discussion we had about greens and khakis and browns last week. It is one of those colours. It is a round-necked T-shirt. It has a picture of Tom Waits on the front of it, who is a um, kind of very individual musician. He has his kind of Tom Waits does what Tom Waits does, and it's fantastic songwriting. And I am wearing this T-shirt because I'm a huge fan, and I'm going to wear it to meet him at the diner tonight with the Nighthawks, and hopefully he might even sign it.
And am I right in thinking that might be a bit of a fantasy?
Ah, that was very much a fantasy.
A bit like Julie's Clangers picnic on the
Is he
moon.
is he still alive?
Yeah, yeah. It's not
Yeah.
that old. I don't think he's that old. He's definitely still alive though.
Well, that's nice to
Yes,
know.
we'll have to
Yeah.
check out whether he
Yeah.
is doing online stuff as well. But I've interrupted you yet again. Josh, who are you? What do you look like? And what are you dressed up to do?
Yeah, I'm Josh. As Drew said, I'm one of the other hosts of Together Unlocked, and I'm a PhD research student, at least at the moment. Um, I have my always slightly messy blonde-ish hair, uh, blue eyes, and then I am wearing a kind of red maroon thick knit jumper, which does have a pattern. I don't think you can actually see that on the camera. And then I'm also wearing a blue, white, and red kind of scarf neck. It's a scarf, but it's one of those that's in a loop, and you kind of do all sorts of fancy foldy things with it. But I just fold it in half and stick it over my head, and that's about as much as I could do
Oh
with it.
no,
Otherwise known as a noose.
it's not
Oh,
known. It's known as a snood, I think.
That's the word.
Something else. A friend
yeah,
of
No,
ours.
it is snood. I just couldn't remember it. So thanks, thanks for that.
No, a friend of ours knitted us one each last Christmas. Alison Lindsay, you're the best crafter I know. If you're watching this, thank you. We might not be wearing them much this winter, but we will be again as soon as all of this, whatever it is, becomes over and we're no longer wholly digital. So, what are you wearing it to go out to do? Or to
And
what are
I
you dressing up to go out to stay in to do?
Yes, so I am dressed up to go out to stay in, to take a kind of autumn stroll through Central Park, and then go and listen to some live music at the Tavern on the Green.
Oh, that does sound lovely. I read an article this morning actually by a woman who was saying that, usually she comes home to Britain at least every 6 months living in New York. And now they have these kind of fantasy conversations about it because they say there's not much point in coming over if you're going to be isolated rather than seeing your family. But yeah, I think we're all dreaming in the opposite direction, aren't we, about being somewhere else. So, Julie, who are you? What do you look like? And what are you dressed up to go out to stay in to do?
I'm Julie. I'm the chair of Together 2012. Um, I have gold and silver hair and dark rimmed glasses. I'm wearing a white t-shirt today with a motif on it, and it's woods, it's woodlands, and there's a dear little fox just sitting in the front of the woods. I'm going to the woods today. I'm going to Ashdown Forest. I'm looking for my great aunt Mildred, who lives in a hut in the woods. She was there long before Winnie the Pooh. She's been there for a very, very long time, eons and eons and eons. She lives a very natural life. Some people would call her a witch, but she chooses not to describe herself as such.
And is this based on a real relative or this is a fantasy relative as well? Because I quite like the idea of fantasy relatives. You could get them to do whatever you want them to do.
Well, absolutely. Well, I don't currently, I'm not aware of having a great aunt living in Ashdown Forest, sadly. But, but in my mind, I do. And given that we're dressing up to go out to stay in, I thought, well, I could potter on down and find great aunt Mildred, and we could sit around the fire because she goes and gathers kindling for her fire. She has it outside her little hut, and we could sit around and we could toast marshmallows and we could look at the sky, and she could tell me stories about traditional ways because she's a very wise woman.
I could burn you some marshmallows later. I've got some of those in the cupboard.
Sounds good to me.
I like listening with burn marshmallows and not roast them.
Well, we have to be realistic about relative cooking skills. So, I'm Ju Gosling, also known as the artist Ju90. I have a self inflicted corona crop, which is hennaed mostly red with probably if you had 4K TV and we had better cameras, a little bits of grey around the side, but in fact, the camera is very forgiving. I've got olive skin, green eyes, silver coloured jewellery, black plastic glasses, and black wrist braces. I am wearing a white t shirt that's got a sort of geometric pattern on in purples, and we're on that conversation again, maybe a bright turquoise green. And it says on in luminous fluorescent orange vinyl vibes. I'm actually dressed up to go out to stay and to do a real thing. So, like I say, it's not often that I'm the most down to earth person, but I'm going to a Tate Late online event tonight, and I'll tell you more about it after 3:30 with dressing up to go out to stay in. But what I will say, because I think it brings us on to our next topic, is that it's celebrating young artists' work that's been mostly created over lockdown. There's 3 simultaneous streams from 7 to 9, and one of them is Represent Radio streaming live from Brixton. So I'm really dressed up to go out to stay in to listen to Represent, but also to just celebrate the taste a bit more. And if we've got time, I'll talk about that under something for the weekend. But I know we were looking at this t shirt beforehand and talking about vinyl collections. So I'm going to go straight back to the West Midlands for Robin, also known as Angry Fish, although we see him as not a very angry fish at all, more a sort of smiley fish to talk about vinyl.
Happy fish.
No, I wouldn't go quite that far.
No, let's not. Yeah, let's not go to extremes.
And I'm supposed to talk after that, am I? Well, no. So, I have since I was a teenager collected vinyl. I always loved record covers, and we, as an art show, we talk about art forms, and over the last, I don't know, 70, 80 years, the record sleeves have featured some of the most well-known artworks in the world. You think about the cover for Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, as an example of an incredible piece of art. Um, or simply the White Album, both by the Beatles, both extremes, but still incredibly um, powerful with the image that they used. But more to, I love records. I love the feel of records. Um, if any of you are out there and don't know what a record is, and there are believers, I mean, the younger people who have never seen, touched, smelt, heard a piece of vinyl, or at least they're aware of it, a record is a 7 or 12 inch piece of black plastic with a groove on one side and a groove on the other. And by some miracle, a bit like the internet, you stick a needle in the groove and music comes out of it. And actually, that's all that matters, really, unless you're the person that is um, kind of doing that end of it. But there is a sort of, I'm old enough to have gone through the change from everybody had records through to um, compact discs and digital players and stuff like that. Um, and although the sounds that are recorded digitally are so clear and so, can be reproduced um, completely cleanly and without any discrepancies in the sound, what people found was they actually kind of lost the human feel. They lost the lo-fi feel. So we talk about high fidelity. Everyone says, "Oh, I've got what hi-fi have you got, or what do you use?" Or we've got hi-fi headphones, which is high fidelity, which is about how the sound's reproduced. Um, but actually, what records bring, and if you is they bring some of the real sounds. You get crackles and little scratches, and
But I think you also get a better sound because for all the young people out there who are also collecting vinyl, I think what I've been really interested in is the resurgence and what the motivations are, And I think you've got the physical object, but then of course you had a physical object with the CD. So I don't know whether it's just that downloads have got better quality than the CDs and just much easier to copy, so it's nicer to buy a record.
Can I
But
just
yeah,
say,
please do.
I've got 78s. So I love my 78s as well as my vinyl collection. The 78s are called such because they're a much more primitive form of material that they're made out of, and they go a lot faster. But when we were doing our project with the Canadian partners, we actually looked at things like how sound is created, and the 78 is a very, very good example of that, because what you've got, as Robin quite rightly says, is you've got a needle hitting the bumps, and that creates waves, sound waves, which are then translated into music. It's all very clever.
Yes, and I think one of the reasons people have gone back to vinyl isn't just that sense of physical object or collectability, or the fact the artwork just looks much better, the size of a kind of large album than it does the size of a CD. But on another level, the sound quality is better, isn't it? I mean,
there's
and
more
I
depth to
can't
the
define
sound.
it. It's
Yeah,
not so compressed, is it?
yeah. I'm going to say, as a young person, I guess, that has a record player, that is the whole reason. I've always liked collecting things. It's why I've got all of the books I've ever read and things like that. That there's just something cool about a record collection, and you do have those big kind of album covers. But yeah, there is something really satisfying about kind of dropping the needle on a record player and you get that little pop, that kind of crackly scratch. But yeah, the sound is a lot richer. But actually, it's convenient we're talking about it today because tomorrow, the 24th, is National Record Store Day.
Yay.
So
We
I was going to talk about it for something for the weekend, but yeah, it works out quite well there rather than this chat. So
Yeah, well, tell us a bit more about it now.
I don't know when it started, but it's kind of a record store appreciation day. Certainly in the UK, I think it's an international thing, but certainly now in the UK, lots of record stores, or kind of vinyl record stores, are small, independently owned businesses. Um, it's a way to kind of celebrate that, and I think kind of drive a little bit of business and kind of keep that industry afloat. I guess in kind of the world of 100,000 songs on a iPod. to kind of keep that physical world alive.
I think it's a really good time to plug, actually, that if, like us, you are shielding and haven't been out for anything, unless it's urgent, since March, you can still buy online. Just about every independent record shop and bookshop now have their own website. Some of them even deliver, same as Amazon. So if you're going to buy physical music of any kind as opposed to a download, do think not just about your own local record shop, but the fact that if you're going to buy online, you can go to any one of these amazing record stores and they've all got, fantastic and different collections. I'm going to be slightly disrespectful and say the other thing I really like about vinyl is it's so flexible for crafts. If you put one of the records into boiling water, you can reshape it into little.
No.
I do have a bowl, actually. Well,
Not anymore.
not anymore. It got broke when I moved house. But it was a Christmas present a few years ago that was literally a melted vinyl, and it sat on my coffee table with my kind of keys and change and stuff.
I think there are many records that deserve to be reshaped.
Well, there is that as well. It used to be a very popular activity in the 60s and 70s in girls' annuals. This is all things you can do with records. Although, in fact, we were still kind of aspiring to buy a record player at that point. So, yes, I was a little bit shocked as well. More recently, you can't really see behind, but I have quite a lot of old CDs decorating different bits of furniture because they're nice and sparkly and you've got to be able to do something with them. But I did, until it completely fell apart, had a garden mosaic, and there's nothing like putting a bag of old vinyl, putting a whole load of records into a bag, take them out of the covers, and then get a hammer. Comes out all sorts of different shapes and sizes, and you can
Julie's
take
face.
one off.
The face of pain going on next to you.
I know, so I had four lovely. Well, I had two panels each divided, so you'd got four squares, and they were the phases of the moon. And I did the moon with bits of CD, and the sky with bits of vinyl. But the vinyl shatters much more easily in much more interesting ways, and it's not half as sharp. So it's an incredibly flexible art form.
You look so sad.
I did send people to the charity shops for the vinyl, and I did pull some of it out and think, no, this is far too good to smash up.
I think Robin's absolutely spot on. There were some records that deserved to never see the light of day. But some were quite kitsch in their own sort of way and a bit collectible.
You can turn them into clocks as well. I've got a clock elsewhere in the studio where you just kind of push out the centre and you put the clock mechanism and it's already got the hole. So, yeah, the most flexible form of recorded music.
You could put a needle on the second hand and play it really slowly.
That would be so cool.
Oh dear, you can certainly tell it's Friday. I think this is an ideal time to showcase one of our locally based musicians, rappers, and artists, and that's Grace Fundu. Grace is a member of our associate drama company, Act Up Newham. She's also a rapper and singer in her own right. We've been profiling disabled artists of colour as part of our Black History Month celebrations. Again, if you're a regular viewer, you know that due to the fact that it was very, very windy on Wednesday, they couldn't get the router to send us the film. So this is the film that we would have seen on Wednesday, but in fact it fits in beautifully now.
Hi, my name is Grace Fundu. Basically, about me, I like to sing, I like to rap, I like to dance. I'm a triple threat. I like to do everything. Everything I do, I like to do new things.
I so want him out of my life. I ain't gonna back you that bottle. What are you gonna do about it? Just because you helped me out, why should I pay you back? You're just nasty. You're just trashy. You're not my friend. You're mean and bossy. I ain't got back in that bottle. I will do what you told me to do. I may be annoying, weird, but why does it give you the right to control my life as you do? Sometimes I cry, sometimes I love, sometimes I do things unexpectedly. You gotta understand me, you gotta keep it real. Don't try and fool me, I am not the one. What about the friendship we used to have? Since then you break me, I could never forgive. I'm not going back in that bottle. I'll be happy as free as me. And one day you will see what a great spirit I am. And I will make my own friends. Until one day, oh, lonely, and regrets.
So in that top, I was playing this role as I was a leopard woman, and basically my character was about like she was struggling, like she was brought up a struggle. So as a child, she was forced to strip, and yeah, she was forced to strip to get money. So because she was working in a circus, so that was my role, and that's what was my character about.
I was a slave, bought by a freak show when I was very young. Because of the way I move and dance like a leopard woman. That's the reason why they gave me nicknames. That's the reason why they gave me nicknames and tattoos. I didn't really choose it. I didn't really like it, but they chose it for me.
As actor, we are very creative. Like we are more open-minded. Like we know things. We know what to do, how to do. We know we can just think we can just name one show we can do, and then we do it.
And thanks also to Hannah Facey, who did the interview and the editing for us. I always love to find out more about the actors in Act Up, but also to see more of the shows. I think we were saying this earlier in the week. We've seen wonderful work that they've created over Zoom, but the profiles are the first time we've had to see them on stage, and it just gives you a whole different understanding. It's like a whole different level again, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an insight into who the actors are behind the roles that they play, and I think it's a mark of their excellence that that's not always obvious, because they do immerse themselves as actors into the characters, and they do it so very well, individually and collectively.
Yes, I mean, we were talking about Staraplergia being bilingual and also signing, but in fact, Hannah was saying to me that most of the companies speak at least two languages, including Grace. So, and I think that's another thing. There's not many disabled-led theatre companies out there where almost everybody speaks at least two and often three or more languages. Did you want to say anything, Robin?
I mean, I've met Grace, so I know kind of how vibrant she is, and it's great, I think, for other people to get to meet the actors as themselves. But I think it's also seeing all these little snippets of the different shows that Act Up have done just shows the breadth of work that they do, and the fact that it isn't they're just safe. And I think that's really important, because a lot of people think, oh, well, it's vulnerable adults with learning impairments. Well, we've got to be, this it's got to be lovely, all nice, all huggy, all huggy, kissy stuff. And actually, they're not. The whole circus freak show thing, and the character that she's playing, particularly, kind of brings some pretty sinister storylines, but actually are the reality that disabled people, but particularly people who haven't been able to argue for themselves about what's right and wrong, have been forced to take part in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it just shines disabled lead. And I think even when they were doing things like The Tempest, it's very much still that core philosophy of being based on lived experience. We're not just profiling these artists for Black History Month. And indeed, it's not confined to Black History Month. So if you're an artist of colour or you know an artist of colour who also identifies as disabled, please let us know on info@together2012.org.uk. We bring you this live stream as part of our Join In From Home programme. And what I'm going to do next is just pop on a short video to tell you a little bit more about it. Together 2012 is running a Join In From Home programme from our website, together2012.org.uk. Click on the link at the top of the page, Join In From Home, to go straight to the main page where you have a wide range of accessible, inclusive creative activities, mostly using things that you would already have at home. At the top of the page and throughout the pages, you will also see videos in British Sign Language to translate the site for deaf people. These videos can also be useful if you have difficulties reading and you simply want to hear more of the content. The Join In From Home programme is based on the activities that we would usually be running in East London. So, for example, we have an arts club which usually operates on a Tuesday with craft-based activities and on a Friday morning for drawing and painting. Here you can join in with the arts club's Hands project and celebrate your uniqueness and membership of the human race. There are full instructions on the linked page here. But essentially, we invite you to draw around your hand on a piece of card. It could be an old cereal packet. Cut the shape out, turn it over, and decorate it with anything you would like to do. It could be paints, crayons, glitter, collage, beads, leaves, anything you can think of. Photograph your hand or hands and send it to us at tv@together2012.org.uk. We'll add it to our video installation and share it on social media. Our music club usually meets on the first Friday of each month. We have an open mic session and we invite everybody to play along with percussion instruments. So here you can learn how to make your own percussion instruments from recycled materials. And you can also join in a percussion workshop from last summer in terms of Carnival Percussion. So these three instruments are used most often in Carnival. We have a shaker, and a go-go, and a hand drum. So this is how to make a recycled shaker, a recycled go-go, and a recycled hand drum. You can also, if you're technically minded, make your own tactile sound instrument. This does require a few simple electronics, but is a very interesting and exciting project as part of our Vibrafusion ongoing work. You can also listen with Together. We have Spotify playlists created by Robin Surgeonator, also known as our TV presenter Angry Fish, and we also have two classical music playlists from Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra, including one that's uniquely suited to people who are feeling very unwell. And we're back again. So, one of the first things that I wanted to add to that is that we are now running a version of the club's programme on Zoom. So, the art club now meets as it did before on a Tuesday and Friday, but on Zoom. We've cut the time down from 2 hours to 1 hour because really I think that's as long as anybody can stay online, even if they've got the data. What we're doing on a Tuesday is it's make and natter. So you can bring anything that you're already working on in terms of craft with a cup of tea to the Zoom. Or alternatively, you can follow the activity that will be led by our club's programme leader and also, of course, an international artist in her own right, Alison Marchant. And then on Friday, they're running a still life session on Zoom. And we also put the still life image up on our highlights and links page. That's on our main together2012.org.uk website. Under the Together Unlocked TV link, there is a sub menu, and that's got a range of information, including more about our animal hosts who make random appearances, really when they're least wanted. But the highlights and links page will have details of all of the things that we talk about on the show today, particularly, but not only, the recommendations for something for the weekend. And there'll also be that film of grace for you to be able to watch again. So I'm just going to pop up the still life image from today. Julie, do you want to audio describe it?
Yes, it's a very nice green cup and saucer, quite traditional, I think, from the 60s, 50s, and 60s. I remember my Auntie Rita had one, a whole set of it actually in our home. It's got a red ribbon which comes out of the lip of the cup, twists round, and ends up in the saucer. It's very interesting because the contrast between the red ribbon and the green of the cup and saucer really highlights it, and it creates very, very interesting shadows. I can imagine it was quite challenging to draw.
Yes, I mean, I think that's the one thing I do say looking at it. The cup is really clean and shiny. It's an empty cup, so there's lots of different bits of light and bits of shadow. You've got all of the kind of round shapes, and you're kind of looking at it from slightly above, so you can also see inside. And then it's sitting on something like a table or a tablecloth. So again, there's a contrast, the sort of line running across where you can see the background. So with that and the curves of the ribbon and the light and shade, yes, I think that was very impressive.
Really interesting because it's so easy to just have a mug on a table and say, okay, draw that. But I think a lot of thought's gone into that still life.
Yes, I mean, on a Friday, well, I would say usually, but of course it's not usual at all. But in the past, and we think again in the future, on a Friday, our drawing and painting session is very much about finding your own voice. And we really urge you to do that, particularly if you haven't been drawing and painting before. If you've got even a pencil at home, pick it up, have a go. But for something like a Zoom session, it seems sensible to have a bit of a focus. And yeah, I think it's the same kind of principle. Usually, people would come to the club, and then we just have a really big choice of drawing materials and different kind of surfaces to draw and paint on, which allows people again to have that experimentation. But it's not critical. If you've got a pencil, you've got some felt tips, you've got biro, you know, the still life doesn't have to be in color. So if you're at all interested, join in. One of the great advantages of Zoom is, although it is due to be not exactly a social session, but people, you can meet each other. It is possible just to have your camera off, or indeed just to look at the highlights and links and use the still image afterwards. So Josh has been doing digital artwork, and I'm going to pop his picture up next, and he can audio describe it and tell us a bit more about that.
Oh, wow, that's great.
So this is a kind of forest, moonlit forest. It's a very large moon. It's kind of the stylized description. So it has a kind of dark blue fading into kind of a light blue gradient for the background, and then the same as kind of the hill semicircle at the bottom. It has, I think they're pine trees, kind of grey green kind of pine trees of various sizes, kind of either side of the image. There's some kind of stars, some very small kind of birds, and then kind of very prominent in the middle is a kind of very large moon with a kind of halo glow effect emanating off of it.
And how did you produce this, Josh?
So this was on Photoshop. So the birds and stars and things are all kind of free drawn. The trees, there's a tool in Photoshop where you can basically select from a whole range of different types of trees and kind of customized them. So I kind of got that image and then used that to make a paintbrush of that kind of outline, and then painted the trees with that. And then to kind of get the glow effect, it's different shades of the color that I used for the moon. So it's a kind of creamy, yellowy white, and then basically set to the kind of various levels of see-through, and it kind of gives that ring glow to it.
Well, it's incredibly effective. And I mean, we've been following your journey. I'm just going to take the image down now. Apart from finally to say, they may be birds, Josh, but they look like bats to me. And given the time of night and the year it is, I think I would just accept that everybody's going to see them as bats. But I think that was a really good example of how you can take the tools in the digital artwork and combine it with the hand drawn things that you can do, and it just makes all the difference. I mean, it looks like a stunning card to me. So again, I think whether you're freehand drawing or doing digital work, think about Christmas, whether that's going to be an electronic card or a real card.
Mum's already put an order in for Christmas card. Like, can you make me a Christmas card?
Well, I think that I love it. I'm so impressed. I could see Great Aunt Mildred popping up in the middle of that. But as a design, it's exceptionally good. I very much like the way that you've managed to graduate the sky coming from the stars, where it's the deepest color, coming down to behind the trees and the earth, where it's lightened. I think you've done an excellent job, and it's a very, very good design, Josh.
I
Yeah,
won't
and
burst his bubble too much by saying that that's a gradient that you
Yeah, that
can
is
drop into Photoshop. But again, that's the advantage.
But you still have to use it.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But before people think it's incredibly difficult, it would be much more difficult to do it in painting than it is.
I literally just went, oh, that one looks nice, and kind of dragged it and dropped it. I played with it a little bit to kind of get how it transitions, but yeah, the actual kind of the color shift itself is literally a drag and drop, just like you said.
Yeah, and that's where the originality comes into something like that. It's not what's there, it's what you do with it, isn't it?
Of course it is.
Yeah.
I think it's lovely.
Thank you.
Yeah, so do I. I'm just saying it. There is a tool, so
Oh, yeah, no, Photoshop made it easy, easier anyway.
I am gonna have to send it in now because it just reminded me. I have an image of Joshua balancing on the nose of a killer whale in his wheelchair.
Boom, boom. Wow, that I don't think any of us can beat that.
not like
Yeah,
first,
you must
anyway.
you must send it in. It would be lovely.
But in the meantime, I think we should move on to something for the weekend, but perhaps not recommend the killer whales. Who wants to start?
Oh, I'll start then. As I was kind of there. I'll just do one to start with. And that is the Glasgow Science Festival. It actually runs, I think, altogether from this year, from the 9th of September to the 9th of November. So we're kind of getting towards the end of it, but bearing in mind that, a lot of children are on half term and lots of us aren't able to go out. Then, if you're into some science, and it's been subtitled as Science on the Sofa. And it's a really kind of expansive website. So it is an online activity, but so much in there. Experiments you can do, experiments you can read about, talks, recorded talks and things from scientists and other investigators carrying out experiments. And I just thought, particularly thinking at the moment with, perhaps more time to do things we're not got anything else to do in, it just looked really exciting.
And I think if you're worried that you or your child have missed out on some science since March, it's a really interesting, fun way to do a bit of extra science over the holiday, isn't it? There's no kind of bite-sized bits. You're not being tested. It's not part of the national curriculum, but they do find really, really interesting ways to do it. And as we were saying earlier in the week, there's a lot of crossover between art and science. What have you got for us first, Julie?
I came across an online resource at the Royal Maritime Museum in Greenwich, and it's basically it's a film cut up into different chapters almost, and it's about how sailors would navigate their ships when back in the day when they were sailing merchant ships in dreadful seas. But this installment is about hidden nature, and I'm really looking forward to watching that.
And is it recorded or is it live?
It's a film. You can go online. I've got a link for it. You can go to the Royal Maritime Museum site, and you click on the link, and it plays for you. So you know it's really lovely.
So I'm just going to get my iPad up with the details of the Tate. So late at Tate are usually real-time events at the different, different Tate museums, because of course they've got Tate St Ives, Tate Liverpool, Tate Britain, and Tate Modern. Sometimes they're free, sometimes they're paid for. This is entirely online and free. It runs tonight from 7 to 9. I would imagine that most of the material, not necessarily all of it, will remain recorded. But what you do is you go to just the tate.org.uk website. So all of that will be in there. But it's called Late at Tate Online. And then the different streams, stream 1 are artists, films, and talks. Stream 2 is audio, and stream 3 is the represent music. But in the audio section, there's a group called Sport, but with double O. Watch Sport perform amongst Tate Britain's most iconic Victorian paintings. The London and Leicester four-piece perform a new track, Hunt and Gather. The track was written during the lockdown, and in true lockdown spirit, one member of the band will be joining in virtually via green screen. My guess is the one in Leicester, given the problems of Leicester. And then there's actor in training Aaron Gill having a one-to-one discussion, and other young artists talking about their experiences. There's 3 young filmmakers who've made artist films about lockdown. And then stream 2, which is audio, there's a collective called Eric, and this is self-recorded audio of young creatives thinking out loud about the things they wish they'd done differently and the things they'd learned from lockdown. And then Represent Late Radio, streaming from Brixton, have got a particular playlist for the evening. So it's not just one thing. You can choose to do one of 3 things, or you can swap between them. I used to try and be a bit more positive than that. I really like going to Tate in the evenings, and particularly Tate Modern, and I think that atmosphere will carry over into the online evening. So I think, if you're interested in any kind of art, filmmaking, or music, it's going to be a good night. So what have you got for us next, Josh?
I had a few different things, but the big one is some film recommendations. So Netflix today have added loads of films to their kind of UK service. So the ones that I was going to talk about, has added all of the Bourne films, which is Bourne, which is kind of the Bourne trilogy, and then the 4th one that's not connected, which are kind of spy, mystery, thriller, adventure films that are really good, and Apollo 13 as well. We like a good space theme on the show, so yeah, that's for anyone that hasn't seen it, that's a great space film. And then it ties into, it's less for the weekend because it's technically on Monday evening, but NASA announced, I think yesterday, a kind of press conference on Monday to talk about a significant discovery on the moon, or significant press conference about the moon. So they're quite looking forward to that. It's quite exciting. Everyone thinks it's going to be about them going back to the moon in a few years, which they've said they're aiming to do.
But they found the clangers.
But yeah, I'm hoping that either they found the clangers or they determined it actually is made of cheese. So it's one of those 3. We'll have to wait and see.
Since I can officially call myself Dr. Ju, I want to know where the TARDIS is. I don't think you can pick it up on our mics, but I was going to say, as usual, the courier cannot read the sign that says we're shielding. Please leave it in the porch. So my assistant's dogs are going a little bit crazy as somebody tries to batter down the security gate. I'm sure if you're shielding, particularly in London, this will all be only too familiar. So what else did you have for us, Josh?
The other thing was, it's a kind of big weekend of sport this weekend, as the sport reporter on the show. The International Swimming League is carrying on. If anyone wants to try that, if you don't want to have to pay for a Eurosport subscription because there's no BBC coverage this weekend, there'll be highlights all over kind of YouTube and Facebook and Twitter from the just International Swimming League. And then there's that'll be a good way to kind of watch stuff and highlights. The Formula One is in Portugal, which should be an interesting race because they haven't raced there in years, and it's described as a roller coaster with all the kind of hills. It'll be interesting to see all the Formula One cars if they just kind of bottom out because they don't have any ground clearance. And then there is also the Rugby Six Nations is starting again this weekend. So if anyone wants to imagine, it's probably quite a one-sided game on which Ireland hammer Italy on Saturday or Sunday. You can do that as well, which will be on BBC or ITV and free to watch.
I mean, as much as I like Formula One, I think they should put cattle grids in as well, just somewhere.
Just the occasional speed bump.
Oh, well, back to me then. I'll stop being silly. So my other item for the weekend, I've obviously had a Scottish flavour for this one because it was Glasgow Science Fair. And this weekend is also the Orkney Storytelling Festival, and I will read from it. It says it's a 4-day program of walks, talks, story sessions, and workshops with renowned storytellers from Scotland and beyond. Normally, the events are held across Orkney. I think they are still being held across Orkney where possible, but everything is going to be broadcast online. So again, there's a link for that one. And I just thought, I was listening to Julie talk about the maritime stuff, and I can imagine, I imagine that the Orkneys will have quite a lot of seafaring linked stories anyway.
And such a lovely way of kind of because I think, let's face it, if you don't live in Cornwall, whether you're shielding or not, you're pretty much stuck at home this weekend. It's incredibly time consuming to get to the Orkneys, as I understand it, because you've got to hop on different planes once you get to the north of Scotland, and it's very pricey. But it just sounds so stunning. So the idea of being able to be in virtual Orkney, something that's never happened before, that has been one of the sort of realizations, particularly to people like me who need support just to be able to leave the house anyway, being able to suddenly visit these places virtually. So yeah, I think the Orkney Festival sounds lovely, and particularly if it's the traditional stories and the traditional walks and the traditional music, and just really finding out more about the culture, because it's very much of its own culture, isn't it? It's not a Scottish mainland culture at all.
And it does say, just there was a bit further down, that it will include a trip to one of the outer islands. So that just sounds idyllic.
Lovely. I'm going to follow that up, I think, Robin. Thank you for sharing that. That sounds lovely. I've got a couple of things on BBC. One is the BBC Sky at Night programme have done a YouTube version of What's in the Sky in October. And I know that we're coming up to the end of October, but there's another moon. Hooray, it's a blue moon. And so, that's quite nice. There's all sorts of planets available as well to see, apparently with the naked eye. So that's interesting. There's also Be Still My Beating Heart, Strictly Come Dancing has returned. And this show tomorrow at 7:25 is the first show where the celebrities will be dancing. I'm not sure how they're going to do the voting, and I guess that will become apparent as we watch the show. But it's only one night per weekend at the moment because of the restrictions, I think, for the pandemic control. So that
read something interesting also, that why it's taken to this long, but this year Strictly has got it's the first time they've got a same-sex couple dancing.
Well, absolutely.
Well,
We
indeed,
had noticed that.
you took the words out of my mouth, actually.
Right.
There
I
we
hadn't
go.
noticed. I
But,
think whether or not you're normally a Strictly fan, and I am, but I know not everybody is, there was something I felt incredibly moving about last week's show, where you'd got so many people coming together really to entertain, and there was not a less competitive spirit. I think there was a higher quality of celebrity because, of course, they've got nothing else to do. And a couple of them were quite honest and said, well, usually I'd be touring all over the place. And they always ask me, and I have to say no. But I think there's a spirit. It's a bit like Bake Off, whether you like baking cakes or not. They went to a huge amount of trouble to film that series. And I think it must have been, whether you were a presenter, a camera operator, or a contestant, they must all have had days where that felt really, really difficult. I mean, I know Nicola Adams is the same sex couple with Katia Jones. Katia Jones is having to live apart from her husband for the whole of the series because the way the bubble works is either the celebrity dancer or the professional dancer has to go in alone with whoever else's household. So, they're putting out an awful lot of effort to entertain us. And I think it really shows it, it's kind of reluctantly makes you enjoy the bits even that you think you weren't going to enjoy.
Can I just say, just finally, Star Trek Discovery has returned,
It has, yes.
which is very, very exciting.
We've got 4 Trekkies here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know we'll never have any viewers at all, will we?
So
But
it's-
yes,
it's series 3, and you can pick that up on Netflix.
Yeah.
and I think when we get to our November filmmakers and photography club on Zoom, the opening credits on Star Trek Discovery
wonderful.
is something that we've always
Mm.
been blown away by, and something we were looking at before lockdown is the function of opening credits and the way you can get opening credits to tell a story in themselves. So there's a whole load more to be said about Discovery, but also about the credits. But now we're coming towards the end of our show. Also, on Monday coming up, we have our regular app date feature. Josh, remind me of the art app that you're going to talk about on Monday.
Photoshop and Sketchpad, I believe it's called.
Excellent. So that's one of the things we'll be looking at on Monday. We'll be talking film and photography more general. On Wednesday, as always, we have our sport, our gaming, our Clockwork Paralympics, but most particularly our poetry. If people want to join in from home, what's the theme of the Pop-Up Poetry Club this week?
The theme is sea, and just for visual description, is we've just been joined by a rather large fluffy black cat called Leo.
Yes, and like I say, if you look under the Together Unlocked TV menu, there is a page of animal hosts with all of the different pets that join us, not just from East London and the West Midlands, but also from Hastings, where our virtual writer in residence, Penny Pepper, lives together with Pixie, her rather short-haired black cat, but we did get them roughly the same time. Yes, all of the cats just love being on YouTube. So I'm going to say goodbye from East London from myself, Julie, and Leonardo, and hand over to the West Midlands, where, as usual, on a Friday, we are going to eventually finish with a song from Robin Surgeonator. We had a brand new song last week. What are we having this week, Robin?
Okay, much to my wife's displeasure, I am going to sing you a song called "The Happening."
Don't creep off without saying goodbye, Josh. We were just asking
Yeah,
you
yeah.
Hello.
first.
Which is a love story. It is the story, but it's whilst it is our love story in essence, it's much more than that. It's a song about everybody should be able to fall in love with somebody.
That sounds really sweet. We always say with poetry, people only write poems when they're in love or really miserable, or indeed when a relationship finishes, if you're Adele and writing lyrics. So, Josh, have you got anything else for us next week? You're going to have sports, gaming, art apps.
Yeah, and then some good ideas on opening credits and good opening credits. I have ideas, so we can talk about that on Monday as well.
Well, in the meantime, have a great weekend. And for everybody who's starting half term, including even and college type stuff, Leo has gone as well. So I think that's a really good time to hand over to Robin and say goodbye from the rest of us. Stay home, stay creative, and stay well.
Goodbye.
Okay. So this, as I say, is a song called The Happening. Our minds met in a smoke-filled bar. We found each other by who, not what we are. I fell in love with her in a single breath. I went into free fall to the very depths of my heart that's pumping and jumping to the core. The physical takes over. I seek to explore more about her, to find her inner self, more about her. My thoughts are a disgrace, which brings me to a place, which brings me face to face with the fact that I love her. I love her. Things started slow, it was just a pretense. She didn't want to crease her dress, so we found nakedness. I fell down on the floor, she fell into my bed. She didn't give a stuff about how I move my legs. I'm a fantastic, gymnastic, energetic, enigmatic, spasm orgy, spastic love machine. And she loves me for who I am. As long as I'm good, you know. She doesn't give a damn about how I make my way about the place, because she loves me. Yes, she loves me. It shouldn't matter who or what you are. Love should be free from barriers. See and feel the person, touch their humanity. Share a space, share a space, share a space inside your heart. It shouldn't matter who or what you are. Love should be free from barriers. See and feel the person, touch their humanity. Share a space, share a space, share a space inside your heart. Thanks for listening. Have a great weekend. Goodbye from Together Unlocked TV.